to Staying Strong for Marriage, is a YouTube channel dedicated to helping people go through marriage separation, divorce, using Christian principles. If that's your situation, I mean, my prayers are for you. I know it's super hard, but I know you guys can make it. This is probably a video for some of you that have kind of gone through the recovery process and you're really thinking, wow, what do I want to do now? More geared for folks that, you don't have children. You were really planning on just staying married, working your career. And all of a sudden, when your marriage came undone, you decided you wanted to wait and pray, but then you were thinking, well, what should I do in the meantime? And one thing that I want to talk about in this video is the great opportunity. I've done other videos, just at least suggest to some of you is, if you don't think that there's, maybe you're in a situation where you don't feel like you're required to seek marriage restoration, or if you're open to that, but it's just not something that your spouse or former spouse seems to be interested in, what can you do? I think there's great opportunities in looking at overseas opportunities. So I shot this video last summer and I'll cut away from that and I just want to give an intro. Hope you guys
I guess one of the things that's so interesting about having a big surprise in life where you were planning on basically building your life around your family and doing some of the things that are just traditional. It may be really weird, it may be strange to think, wow, so I'm not going to live the rest of my life in a family, in a marriage. Maybe some of you are thinking, maybe I'll never have kids. I remember when I first met people that they held this idea, I thought it was really strange. Like in the Midwest, we definitely are all about family and kids. But maybe this is not going to be the life that God has for some of us. And as hard as it may be in the beginning to accept that, when we do kind of come to the realization that, well, we're either going to wait for our spouse or we're not going to get married, there's like this whole world of opportunities that kind of opens up before us that we never even thought about. Some of those videos I've been doing is study with me, thinking about, wow, you can go and start a new business. You can go and get a new level of education and get to places as a professional that you would not have been able to get to before. One of the other really amazing opportunities is to think about all the places that you could go, live, and work in the world. So one of the reasons I'm doing this video about Lebanon and the opportunities here is, one, I want to show that it's livable. That there's a lot of modern amenities. There are certain, if you're a French speaker, if you're an English speaker, if you're an Arabic speaker, you can come here and fit right in. It's not that difficult. A lot of people, like I just had a really long conversation with someone here working at the mall, obviously English educated, and there's no problem. There was not a word, there was no hesitation as far as meaning, communication. It was very fluid. On the other side of things though, the Middle East offers great opportunities if you want to do something that has a lot of meaning, loaded with meaning. There's the whole Syrian crisis. They're going to be rebuilding that country for years to come. There's a ton of opportunities, NGO opportunities, teaching opportunities, healthcare opportunities, business opportunities, construction management opportunities, where you could come and you could work in this region and you could really bless communities and countries that are coming out of like deep struggle, deep hurts. If you have a counseling background, there's a lot of kids that have lived through war, and maybe you can't work right away in a direct one-on-one kind of interpersonal aspect like that, but you can still do spreadsheets, you can still do business management, you can still do communications, you can do web management, you can do fundraising, you can do all kinds of these like kind of administrative roles that still relate to your field while you're picking up some of the language in Arabic. Arabic's more difficult, but you can still learn. You just have to be a little adventurous, You have to be willing not to make mistakes, or not to be afraid to make mistakes. If you mess something up, if you don't say something right, you just have to have fun with the language. You have to take yourself a little bit not so seriously. Realize it's a humbling thing to come to a place and say, okay, I don't know how everything works here. Some people, they really struggle with that. They want to be in control. They want to know how to say everything. They're always concerned about their appearance and their ability to present themselves in such a way where, they're given respect, they're understood, they're always smart. Maybe that's something that you should get over, and coming to a place like this could be a really freeing thing where you can kind of let go of that and just be fine with who you are. Know that you're loved and accepted by God, and you can make mistakes, you can be a learner, a language learner, a cultural learner, and it'll have huge payoff, but you got to get over like the pride part a little bit. I guess what I'm saying is, if you think about coming here, working here, if you have a high level of skill, there are certain jobs in this region really open to Westerners and live and work in this part of the world. There's huge opportunities as far as, I think honestly, one of the reasons why I'm kind of putting this out there to you guys is, I remember hearing a stat a few different times. I should probably fact check it, I will, and then post some references, but I heard that like 99% of all money given to the church or given to Christian charity ends up going to help Christian people. I don't think that that's God's intention. When he came to Abraham, the promise was that he was going to bless him, blessed to be a blessing, right? That God's promise wasn't just for Abraham and his family and his people. The plan was to bless all the nations of the earth. And so I don't think our giving reflects that. The way that we spend the money that comes into Christian organizations reflects God's heart in that way. It doesn't reflect a charity and a love to all the nations of the earth. It really shows a charity and a love for us first. And then whatever is left over, that one penny, that 1% out of the 99% that comes into the church, goes to the people that are outside of Christianity, that are outside of, the knowledge of God. I don't think that's right. So for those of you that are Christians, since a lot of the stuff that I do cover on this channel is Christian based, I thought this would be an interesting take, something interesting to think about, something interesting to consider. Because maybe you're thinking, wow, my whole family just exploded. And if you don't have kids, or if your kids are grown, there are almost like unlimited opportunities that once you go through the grieving process and you start thinking about what do I want to do now, it may feel like all I wanted to do was go and do plan A. Maybe plan A isn't an option anymore, and you're thinking about other things that are an option. I get it. We're praying for the restoration of our families. I think God wants that, absolutely. John 17, it says that the people will realize who God is when they see the unity of Christians, the unity that is expressed in the Godhead, the unity that Jesus has with the Father. That's his plan for us and for our people and for our families and our communities. You may be trying to make that happen, and it takes two, and maybe you can't, so that's fine. We're just waiting patience, but what are we going to do in the meantime? Well, I'll put this out to you. Try something out of the box. Think of what are the most important, biggest crises in the world, Where are people suffering the most? I think those are really great questions to ask. So easy just to hang out in our own culture with what we know, with what's familiar, with what's easy. Maybe that's not what God is calling us to do. Maybe that's not the best thing that we could spend. Let me ask you a question. What do you really think about God rewarding us for our actions and our decisions? How seriously do you take the parable of the talents? Because I've been misquoting this verse I've been referring to. I said it was coming from 1 Thessalonians, actually from 1 Corinthians 3, the passage where Paul is talking about how the foundation is Christ, but that we then go on to build upon that foundation. And then on the judgment day, everyone's going to find out what we built with, the quality of things that we did with our lives, whether we built with precious stone or gold, and we receive a reward, or whether it's with like hay, straw, or stubble. It gets burned up and is basically seen to be worthless. How seriously do you think about those things when you look at your life and your life decisions? Do you think that that's really going to happen to you? And how do you feel that you're building? I want to see you guys do great, I want to do the same for myself. I don't often hear people bring these things up in serious ways. Most of my religious background has been that you say the prayer, you come to Christ, and it's all good. The rest doesn't really matter, whether sin or whether just like living in like a mediocre, lukewarm way, not making these sacrifices, not putting the kingdom first. But that's what God calls us to do, doesn't he? He says, seek first my kingdom, and all these other things that you're concerned about, he's going to take care of. But he seems to be pretty serious, especially when he talks in this passage, 1 Corinthians 3, on the day of judgment. That, even believers, it says that, if we kind of waste our time and waste our lives and waste our talent, at least in this passage, it sounds like that those who are of the faith will be saved, but we'll suffer loss. Like, we won't have anything to really show for our lives. We'll just barely escape as one escaping through the fire. It's a little bit different than that story that we have in the Gospels where Jesus talks about the parable of the talents, right? That he gave 10 talents to one, 5 to another, and 1 to the third. You guys know the story, but you know how it goes on. The master leaves, he comes back, he sees that two of the people, they invested well, they took their abilities, and they really made something, useful with the time and that they had. Other people, they just kind of sat on it. They just didn't really do anything. They were afraid of messing up, of, losing, of maybe, and I mean, I get it, you could come to the other side of the world and just, feel like, well, look, honestly, I feel like I wonder what have I accomplished by coming here? Have I made a difference? Have I blessed anyone in a significant way? Because really I just came here to study. Well, now I'm thinking, what should I do? Should I go and help these small companies grow? Should I work in consulting? Should I go into banking? Should I go to Egypt? Should I work with nonprofits and go to Yemen? I don't know. And that's something, each of us are going to have to figure out. But I think it's the right question to ask is, what does God have and what's really worth our time and our talent and our ability? Are we seeking God or are we serving mammon? God says we can't serve two masters. As tempting as it is and as much pressure as there is on us to make money and, provide for ourselves. Well, it's a huge questions. I wish you guys the best. We'll talk to you later. Bye.
You gotta learn from some people who